you take a nice chair?
Well, because I wanted us to be at the same height, which is like now we're not even at the same height. Yeah. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Winnie Marion, and this is Simon Says, the weekly CAD podcast. Today, I'm here with Benjamin Kapit.
Hello.
And we are going to be talking about film at Simon's Rock, because Benji is kind of our weekly CAD resident film person.
That's very true.
Actually, you're not really kind of. You're officially our weekly CAD resident film person, and you have a lot of knowledge about film and other things.
I like to think so.
Yeah, so how long have you been doing this kind of stuff?
Doing it well. I think I started first year of high school, actually pursuing it as like real artistic career. Before that, I just messed around with a camera when I could, which I think is what got me into all of this. But I never really started actively trying to do it well until early high school.
Would you suggest to people who can that the best way to get started and to feel comfortable is to just start by messing around in your free time?
Definitely. You can only learn so much from actual, film classes. They're helpful in their own ways, but the best way to get started and to see if you're interested in it is to just learn about cameras, mess around with a camera, try putting together a little short film, see what works, see what doesn't, make another one, and just go from there.
At Simon's Rock, you can rent cameras or ask people?
Yes, you can rent out equipment. They prefer to give it out to actual film students, so it's a little more difficult if you just haven't taken a film class and you just say, hey, can I get some gear? But I do highly recommend the film classes here, and that will allow you to take out gear and learn about it.
If you do want to do that, do they teach you about types of cameras in the film class?
I actually don't know. I didn't take the intro to production, so I don't know if they talk about cameras in that. I have no doubt that if the students in the class said to Deanne, the film professor, hey, can you talk a little bit about how cameras work, he would. But the classes I've taken so far, I'm in screenwriting, which we don't really go over cameras very much, and in the higher level production class, most everyone knew the basics of cameras, so we didn't actually go over it. That being said, I have no doubt that Deanne would happily teach about it.
And so you talk about Deanne. Is he the main person on campus?
He is the film professor on campus.
He is the film professor?
He is the film professor.
And how are his classes?
I love them.
Yeah.
He's an excellent teacher. You can't learn film under a very rigid hand. It's such a flexible medium that you can't have a film professor who says this is the only way to do it. This is how we're going to do it. And Deanne, thankfully, isn't like that. He understands that there are a lot of ways to approach it, and he supports all of them, and he's very knowledgeable in all of them, too.
And I've heard that as a professor, he's very close to his students.
He is, yeah. He has it's a little cultish, but the students who really pursue film try hard at it. He gets very close with, and he's very kind. He's a very chill guy.
And the students who do pursue that, what's kind of the culture around that, and how do you get introduced to them, to meet them?
So I got introduced to them through actually taking the film class. Everyone knew everyone else except for me, so I was kind of the new kid, the new sheep.
You were the new sheep.
I was the new sheep on the block. The odd sheep out. And it was very interesting to kind of sit back and just observe. And I eventually got brought into the little group once they realized that I knew what I was talking about. And from there, I got people on my sets. I got on people's sets. We all talked about films and hung out. And I made a lot of good friends through that.
So let's say you can't take a film class because your credits don't allow for it, or you're pre-med person, but you have a kind of passion for film. Are there other ways to start projects on campus or be a part of projects on campus that aren't associated with the film class?
Just ask. You see people walking around campus with cameras. People put out emails looking for cast and crew. Just ask the right people. If you ask your friends, hey, do you know anyone who's making a project? They probably do. You'll get on sets. And if you want help producing films, I guarantee you there are film students out there like myself who would be happy to work with anyone.
And so projects like yours, who could come up to you? What would they say to make you?
To get on one of my sets?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to work on one of your sets.
That's
about it. If they come to set and they do well, then it's very likely that not only will I say, hey, please come back to set, but I will tell the other kids in the film class, hey, this person knows what they're talking. They know their shit, and they will get more involved with it.
And so do you want to take a minute to talk about your projects that you're working on?
Always.
What is One Door Over?
So One Door Over it's a show that I'm shooting on campus that I shot all of last year and am continuing into a second season this year. With the first season coming out, we're aiming for late November to start releasing.
And that's on YouTube?
It will be on YouTube, Second World Entertainment. It's kind of about this group of kids, this friend group that revolves around these two main characters, and the show is about how the conflicts of these two characters spreads out and affects everyone else. This friend group trying to keep themselves together when most of the situations are pulling them apart. That's at least the first season.
And it's with all Simon's Rock students?
All Simon's Rock students for cast and crew. There's one person who isn't a Simon's Rock student who did crew for a few shots back home. And then a few of the writers don't go here. But all of the cast, Simon's Rock or Simon's Rock involved people,
And it's pretty much all shot here, too.
Yes. There are like a few scenes, very, very few scenes that are shot elsewhere. Mm-hmm. I've shot in most of the dorms, most of the buildings on campus.
And they're okay with that?
God, I hope so. It's a Simon's Rock production, so like...
Right. So, yeah. I mean, they should be.
Yeah.
How have the people who are in it gotten involved in it?
Most of them, I just kind of walked up to them and were like, hey, I got an idea. You in? And they were like, yeah. And then they were.
Yeah.
I did not hold auditions. I didn't send out casting calls or crew calls. I just kind of used word of mouth, and I have a little family now.
So you've heard it here first. If you want to do something, the best way to do it is to do it.
That's true.
So if you go around on campus, and I've seen this as just like kind of a theme, because we talked last week to Charlie Yates about music.
Right.
That was our first introduction thing to the different sections on campus, and he is just saying if you want to be a part of something, that you just have to go out and talk to people.
For sure.
And I hear you saying the same thing about film, where it's just like the more people you know and talk to and just like reach out to if there's something you want to do, the more feedback you're going to get, and the more you can actually just do it.
Yeah, definitely. And also just being out on campus shooting, people will come up to you and say like, hey, what are you working on?
Right.
Especially, a lot of people around campus have cameras and go out and shoot with them, and you've seen my rig. It calls attention to itself. And so I get a lot of people coming up to me asking about the project, and then a few people from there have been like, well, if you ever need any crew, and then they've come and worked on the project.
Right. What other things do people shoot on campus that you know of?
I mean, most of what I see people shoot... So Wonder Over is not for a film class. Mm-hmm. Most of what people shoot on campus is usually related in some way to the film curriculum, to the classes here. And so that's a lot of what you see people shooting, is you see them shooting projects for the production classes. Other than that, I haven't actually really seen a lot of people shoot stuff like completely extracurricular the way Wonder Over is, but people who are shooting films for their film classes are desperate for cast and crew. I'm desperate for cast and crew. If you want to get involved, please get involved.
And if you want to get involved, you can email Benji.
Yes.
Is that the best way?
bkapit18@simonsrock.edu.
Sorry. simonsrock.edu. simons-rock.edu.
Oh, yes, I forgot the dash.
You were talking about the fact that it's not related to a film class.
Right.
And that it's just something that's come out of your own brain loin, and you've birthed it.
Oh, you didn't need to use those words.
No, but I did.
You did.
So, if that's the case, how does your artistic process for that work?
My artistic process for Wonder Over?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've actually been working on Wonder Over for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Back in the olden days, summer before my freshman year, I was bored out of my fucking mind, and I went to my friend Seth Don, and I said, hey, let's make something. So we came up with the original idea for Wonder Over, and we started shooting it. And then it went through a few revisions, a few other versions. People left for college. People got drowned in their schedules. And then when I came here, I realized that this was actually the perfect place to really do what I wanted Wonder Over to be.
And why is that?
I think the old Wonder Over was just people hanging out at a house. Mm-hmm. And I could throw conflict in there, but the environment wasn't quite right. It didn't feel right being just people hanging out at a house. And once given the opportunity to shoot it at a college, I kind of realized this is where the story had always meant to go. These characters not only hanging out together, but living together. That was the environment where I could really bring them to life. And so I've been getting to do that, and we're almost done and ready to release season 1, and it's been amazing. And I think that's my second favorite set I've ever been on.
Well, do you think that it's oftentimes that your location or the things around you inspire you to write and direct?
Oh, hell yeah. Most of my films came off of one specific event or location or something where I was just like, oh, shit, that's what I want. And then it just kind of bounced up from there. And Wonder Over, this version of Wonder Over, is so heavily based around the campus that it couldn't be what it is if it weren't for the Simons Rock campus.
And what about the campus has inspired you?
Locations and people, really, mostly. A lot of the characters had their own kind of vibe when I was going into it, because I didn't finish writing season 1 before I got here. I wrote a few episodes. People from home wrote a few episodes. But then once I saw the actors and saw them kind of taking on the characters the way that they saw them, not that I saw them, I could actually write differently. I could write so that these actors could play the characters to the best that they could be. Mm-hmm. Justice Bowman, who plays one of the lead characters, Seth Altman, this character was written very differently from how Justice plays him, and I so much prefer the way that Justice took this character than the way that he was originally written. And so now I'm able to write Seth to his full potential with Justice in mind. And then the locations, this campus is just gorgeous. It is incredible, and the shots that I have been able to come up with here, I would never been able to do at home.
Right.
I don't know who designed the DAC, but they deserve a medal.
Are you a very visual person when it comes to your work?
Before most of what I do in film now, I was a cinematographer. So I was in charge of the camera and in charge of the shots. So I'm a heavily visual person. I put a lot of my focus into what the camera sees instead of most directors, they kind of leave it entirely to their DP and focus on the actors.
What's DP?
Director of photography. So cinematographer, director of photography, same thing. I use the words interchangeably to sound more pretentious.
Right.
So
and what's that job?
you are in charge of the camera, in charge of the lenses, and the framing. Director of photography, they're entirely in charge of the photography of the film. And I have been on sets where I can entirely leave that to my DP and say, here's the camera, here is what I want to kind of convey, go crazy.
Right.
And they can, but on this campus and on this set, I get very obsessive about what I want the camera to see, so I'm very heavily involved with the cinematography, as I am with the actors. But I don't need to direct them as much as I do on other sets, because the actors, they take these characters and they just run with it. They know what they're doing.
What are the other roles you play on set? Are you an editor or...
Oh man, I play a lot of roles. Partially, it's due to the fact that I have trouble sometimes finding people to play these roles, because there are a lot of people who are involved with this project and love this project, but they have their own schedules, they have their classes and their homework, and they're not art students, so they can't just not do all of the work that I don't do. So while I don't love it, I am an editor, though I think that will be taken over eventually. I do some of the writing, though not all of it. I will sometimes do camera if I'm not actually in the scene, and I write the music for it, some of the music for it.
As an editor, what do you do? Like, what are you looking for when you're editing?
As an editor, what am I looking for? That's actually a good question. What am I trying to do with it?
Yeah, like you have the shots, you could just piece them together, but that's not what you do.
I mean, that's essentially, like, that is the base job of an editor. I think that what I'm trying to do as an editor is tell the story the best way possible, and also to make the visuals as beautiful as possible, because I do editing and I do coloring, which I much prefer to do. We shoot very flat, so there's very little saturation, very little contrast, and I have to go in and make it look pretty for the screen, and that's what I prefer to do. But editing, I'm just trying to show the audience what they need to see at the right time.
And for writing, how is that artistic process different than the artistic process of directing, or is it intertwined for you?
They're intertwined. Getting to write my own stuff, I know how I want to direct it on set, I think. I've directed other people's stuff, and I don't love it because I can read it and interpret it, but I didn't create it myself.
Right.
So it's kind of hard. And then I've seen other people direct my writing, and I'm just sitting there in the back knowing I have no power, going, that's not how I wanted it to go. That's not the right way. And I can't say that, but I think that getting to write and direct these same stories and stories that I've been working on for years now, they're kind of one and the same for me.
How is writing for a TV show different than writing for a movie?
So most of the movies I write for are shorter. So they range from like 10 to 50-ish minutes, versus all of season 1 will probably be upwards of an hour, if not 2. Was 10 episodes. They usually average around 12 minutes. So it's just about 2 hours. So I can tell a lot more of a story in that time, especially since there will be a second season. That's 4 or 5 hours of story that I can do. And I think that I can just develop the characters a little bit more, put them in more interesting situations, and also show not just this one story arc, but like there's a love triangle in the first season that's kind of part of the main plot. And I can do a story about a love triangle in 5 minutes. Anyone can. It's easy. But I wanted to show a love triangle at college. So the love triangle throughout the year and all of the conflicts throughout the year. And so I think that writing for a TV show allows me to do that a lot better than writing for a movie.
So it's more focused on the characters for you? It's
more focused on the characters, partially because of the fact that it's a TV show, but also just the style of the show. But it's more focused on the characters because I can focus on them more. I can tell them more. I can show them for longer. So I can develop them slower. And life doesn't happen quickly, so I can show them throughout a year.
And is writing easier when it's coming out of a character place rather than like a plot place for you?
I think that it's both. I think that they're intertwined. So it's not really easier because you create these characters, you develop these characters, and then you throw them into a plot. Mm-hmm. That's at least my style. I bring these characters to life in my head, and then I say, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take Matt, and we're going to take Seth, and we're going to lock you in a room. What happens? Mm-hmm. And so from there, they kind of write themselves. Because I know Matt and I know Seth, and I know that if one character says A to the other character's going to say B back. They start talking to each other, and then I just write, and I write. And if it's good, and I shoot it.
And do you often give yourself prompts like that, like if they're locked in a room, or if this happens?
It's less prompts and more of like I know vaguely the idea of the... Like that's an actual episode of Wonder Over. I won't give anything else away. Mm-hmm. But there is an episode where 2 of the characters get locked in a room. And I knew I wanted to do that, and it's kind of like a prompt, but it's more of like I know that this gets them locked in the room, this happens in the room, this gets them out of the room. What do they say and do in between those things?
Right.
And then that's where it goes.
Is there any more advice you would have for anybody looking to get into film and writing or directing?
YouTube. Watch YouTube tutorials. I've learned so much from YouTube just looking up like how to create a flat profile on a camera. Every single camera you can imagine. It'll tell you how to do it for.
Oh, wow.
YouTube tutorials are good. Watching other people's short films. You learn what works and what doesn't. And then just shoot things. Get out there and shoot a film. Then do another one. And if you like it, do another one. And then some more after that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I'll plug one more time. If you want to watch any of Benji's films from the past, you can go to Second World Entertainment on YouTube.
And Instagram.
And Instagram too. They have a great Instagram account with lots of Benji's photography, which is gorgeous. And if you want to get in touch with the Weekly CAD, you can email us, weeklycad@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's @theweeklycad. And read more of our articles is weeklycad.com. So thank you so much. We have actually on the website interview with Benji from about a year ago. So if you search that, you can learn more about the process of making One Door Over and other things about his artistic process. But that's all the time we have for you today. I'll hope to see you next time. Listen to Benji's beautiful music as it plays now, closing, because he also wrote that. So it's just triple, quadruple, quintuple whammy here. Thank you, and good night.